Welcome back to Hoopspill. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now because we don't sugarcoat anything on this channel. We tell you exactly what's happening in the NBA. No filters, no agendas, just the raw truth every single time. And today's video is gonna hit different, so stay locked in from the very first second to the very last word, because what we're about to break down is something the mainstream media keeps dancing around, and we are done waiting for someone else to say it out loud. There is a code inside every NBA locker room that nobody ever writes down, but every single player who walks through that door feels it immediately. It wraps around you the second your sneakers hit that floor. It is unspoken, it is unwritten, and it is absolutely ruthless. Because those 15 roster spots on every team are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent every guy who trained at midnight, every player who took a red-eye flight to a city that didn't want him, every prospect who sat in an empty gym waiting for one real call that never came. And that wait is real. That wait is sacred. Every single person holding one of those spots knows exactly what it costs to get there. And more importantly, they know exactly what it costs to stay there. Because nobody is coming to save you in this league. Nobody is going to hold your hand through a bad stretch and tell you it is okay. The NBA does not slow down for feelings. It does not pause for potential. It does not care about what you might become someday. It only cares about what you are doing right now, tonight, in this moment, when the game is on the line and the coaching staff is scanning the bench, looking for someone they can trust with real minutes. There are players grinding in the G League right now who have never heard their names called on a big stage. Players dropping 30 points a night in empty arenas. Players with no guaranteed contracts, no famous last names, no marketing deals, no spotlight following them around. Just a ball, a court, and an obsessive hunger to prove that they belong in the best basketball league on the planet. And you have never heard of most of these guys. You probably cannot name 5 of them right now, but they are out there every single night putting up numbers that would demand attention if anyone was paying close enough attention to notice them. These are the players who spent summers in sweltering gyms doing workouts that nobody filmed. These are the guys who bounced on two-way contracts from city to city, who survived 10-day deals and packed their bags overnight without knowing where the next stop would be, who played overseas in countries where they did not speak the language, who sat in hotel rooms alone watching NBA games on their laptops, dreaming about the day they would get their shot. And every single one of them knows that the moment an opportunity opens up, they have to take it with everything they have, because it might never come again. That is the culture that makes this league what it is. That is the competitive pressure that keeps the level of play astronomically high year after year. And when something disrupts that culture, when someone in the locker room gets the sense that a roster spot is being held by someone who has not fully earned the coaching staff's trust in live game situations, the vibe in my building shifts. It does not explode all at once. It does not turn into a visible confrontation. It builds slowly. It lingers in the air. It seeps into the daily rhythm of practices and shoot-arounds and film sessions until the whole room feels it without anyone saying a single word. That is exactly the situation quietly developing right now in Los Angeles. And before anyone starts calling this a personal attack, understand that this is strictly about basketball. This is about roster construction. This is about a team that has made it clear through its own actions that it is trying to compete right now, not 2 years from now, not after a rebuilding phase, right now. And the rotations they've been running tell a very specific story about where their trust actually lives, when the game clock is ticking and the outcome actually matters to the standings. When the backcourt went thin, when key players were sitting out with injuries, when the team desperately needed bodies who could provide real defensive pressure and keep the ball moving, the head coach went in every possible direction except toward the end of his own bench. He leaned harder on players already playing heavy minutes. He experimented with lineup combinations that made basketball analysts tilt their heads sideways. He did everything in his power to manufacture solutions before he turned to the player sitting right there ready to play. And when he finally did, the game was already decided, the opponent had already checked out mentally, and the competitive intensity had completely dissolved. That is not a random rotation decision. That is not a one-night coincidence. That is not a coach being cautious during an early season stretch while he figures out what he has. That is a consistent, repeating pattern that has now played out over enough games to qualify as a clear philosophical stance. Coaches in this league play the guys they trust, even through slumps. They ride out cold shooting nights. They live with turnovers and defensive breakdowns from players they believe in, but they will not gamble a real win on someone they have not yet decided they can count on when pressure hits its highest point. The statistics do not provide any shelter from this conversation either, because through the first stretch of this season, the production numbers in real game situations have been minimal. The assist numbers are not generating positive ball movement, the defensive disruption is not showing up in any meaningful way, and the majority of the playing time that has been logged came in those final minutes of blowouts, when the other team's starters are already in the locker room, and the benches on both sides are full of guys just trying to finish the night healthy. Those are not reps that build trust. Those are not moments that change a coaching staff's evaluation of a player. What changes a coaching staff's mind is a moment, one sequence, one defensive play, one shot, one hustle moment that makes a coach stop and say out loud that he needs to see more of that. That is the spark that unlocks real minutes. That is the catalyst that shifts a player from the inactive column of the coach's mental roster into the guys I can go to bucket. And right now, that spark simply has not appeared in a way that has caught anyone's attention in that building. The player has blended into the background during the moments where standing out is the only thing that matters. Here's where the roster math becomes impossible to ignore for a franchise that has publicly committed to competing for a championship this season. 15 spots, that's the entire inventory of talent a team gets to work with, and every single slot carries a cost in terms of cap space, in terms of trust dynamics inside the locker room, in terms of the signal it sends to the rest of the league about what this organization values and how it makes decisions. And as the trade deadline approaches and front offices around the league start calculating leverage, every contract on every roster becomes either a tool or a problem. Around the league right now, there are hungry perimeter players who would immediately impact a playoff caliber roster, defensive specialists who make life genuinely difficult for opposing guards, floor spacers who understand their exact role and never deviate from it, energy players who change the entire pace of a game the second they check in and start pressuring the ball. These are the kinds of contributors that teams with championship aspirations need to have available when the schedule gets brutal in March and every possession starts carrying playoff implications. And those players earn their spots with performance, nothing else. The uncomfortable truth about a win-now environment is that it strips away every layer of narrative and leaves only the raw question of who is actually helping the team win basketball games right now. Not who has the best story, not who carries the most marketable name, not who represents the most emotionally compelling subplot of the season, just who is giving this team the best possible chance to win tonight. And when a coaching staff repeatedly answers that question by choosing players who were waived by other franchises over a player on their own guaranteed roster, that answer is deafening, even in its complete silence. Development is real. Growth takes time. Young guards in this league need reps and confidence and experience before they can become reliable rotation contributors. None of that is being disputed here, but development only accelerates when there is genuine trust flowing in both directions. And right now, that trust has not been established through the moments that matter most, which means a young player finds himself in the worst possible situation a developing player can be trapped in. Officially listed on the roster, officially part of the organization, but not truly embedded in the competitive plan, watching from the sideline as the season moves forward without him. And that's where momentum quietly dies before a career ever gets a real chance to breathe.